This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
The Rambam in Hilchos Deos, Parak Gimel, speaks about the kavanah that one should have when one fulfills their regular mundane activities. So, for example, in Halacha Beis, the Rambam says that when one sits in their house or gets up or speaks, it should all be with the kavanah in order leida es Hashem. So, for example, the Rambam says when one eats and drinks, one should not think that they're eating and drinking merely for personal pleasure, because otherwise they'll just eat things that taste good or sweet that may not be healthy for the body. But rather, one should be mechavein kedei lahavrois gufay ve'ivarav bovad, in order to give strength and health to one's body. And the Rambam continues in Halacha Gimel, and here the Rambam says something that always struck me. The Rambam says that when having children, one should not think that they'll have banim oisin malachtoi to do his bidding, va'amelin l'tzarchai, and work for him. Ein zu derech tova. So perhaps then the Rambam, one would say, but rather one should have children to fulfill the mitzvah of pruruvu, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded. But the Rambam adds something very interesting. The Rambam says that one should rather have a child, v'yasim aliva shi'eloi ben, ula yiyah chacham v'gadol b'Yisrael. Perhaps this child will be a great, wise man, and he'll be a tzaddik and a gadol among Klal Yisrael. Why does the Rambam need to add that in? That one's kavanah should be to have a child, maybe there'll be a gadol in Klal Yisrael. That would seem to be somewhat of an unconnected kavanah to the mitzvah of pruruvu. There's one mitzvah of pruruvu, and there's another concept that one needs to teach their children Torah, but the two mitzvahs one would not necessarily think are interrelated. Why would the Rambam say that part of the kavanah of having children is ula yiyah chacham v'gadol b'Yisrael? Today is Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan. It has become very popular from the Shela HaKadosh that today is mesugal to daven for the success of one's children, especially in the area of Yerushalayim and Limud HaTorah. The Shela writes that it should be shagor b'fi ava'im. It should be fluent and frequent in the mouth of a father and mother to pray for the spiritual success of their children. And the Shela gives specific intervals that one should pray for the success of one's children. When you say Berachas HaTorah, B'niyah anachnu v'tze'atzo'enu. The Shela says, when you say in Ahava Rabbah, Avinu Avarachaman, when you say V'seim b'libeinu lahavinu l'haskel, one should be mechavein for the success in Torah of one's children. Likewise, the Shela says, when you say Nuvalat Zion, Laman lo'nigal l'rik v'lanei l'bahala, one should be mechavein for the success of one's children. But the Shela says, Libi Omerli, my heart tells me that of all the days of the year, it is today, Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan, which is most mesugal for one to pray for their children. In fact, the Shela HaKadosh composed a special Tefilla to say, especially today on Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan. And in this Tefilla, I believe, the Shela unlocks the secret to the kavanah of the Rambam. The Shela says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you were here before the world was created, and you created the world, and you created the world, begin l'hishtamaida elakus v'emsas taras chakdosha. You created the world that it should be known, your divinity and godliness, through the agent of the Torah. Therefore, Chazal say, on Bereshis, Bishvil Torah, and Bishvil Yisrael. Meaning, the Rebbeinu Shem created the world for the Jewish people to be able to learn Torah. The Shela continues, and in order to keep the world going, and in order for the Torah to continue, the Rebbeinu Shem gave us two mitzvahs, says the Shela, V'al kiyum ha'olam v'al kiyum ha'Torah, ba'alanu mimcha Hashem lekeinu shnei tzivuyim. You wrote in the Torah pruruvu, and you wrote in the Torah, v'limadatem oisam es b'nechem. Says the Heilige Shela HaKadosh, v'hakavana b'shtehen echas. The intent in these two mitzvahs, pruruvu and v'limatim, it's one kavanah. That is, kiloi l'soyu v'arasa kiyum l'sheves. The world was not created to be desolate, but to be inhabited. V'lichvayda barasa yatzarta afas. It was created for your honor, in order that shania anachnu v'tze'atzo'enu v'tze'atzo'e k'amcha beis Yisrael yodei shemecha. In other words, the Shela learns that there are two mitzvahs, pruruvu and v'limadatem oisam, two mitzvahs, having children and teaching them Torah, but it's one mitzvah. The mitzvah is having a child to be able to teach Torah, and then through that child will promulgate Yediyas Hashem Ba'olam. Therefore, the Rambam in Hilchos Deos says that when one has a child, one should not just be mechavein to have the child because Hashem said so. Understand that there's another dimension of the mitzvah puravu, and part of the mitzvah puravu, as the Shela explains, is v'limadetem oisam. And therefore the Rambam says, one should be mechavein to have a child, not just to teach Torah to on a minimal level, but ula yiyah chacham v'gadol b'Yisrael. So may we all be zoicha to tap into the power of today, to be zoicha, that Rivan Shalom be makabel all of our tefillos, that all of our children should be yoidei shemecha v'loimdei sarsecha lishma, shetaka all be zoicha, that all of our children will be chachamim ugedolim b'Yisrael.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.